Hello, everyone. Welcome to We'd Rather Be Reading. I'm Jerica.
And I'm Leah.
What did you do this week? Did you read this week? I have been slacking.
No, I have been reading this week. I finished the After books, which I said I wouldn't last time. I said I would drop them, and then clearly I couldn't, and I powered through. And I hate them. I've given them 1 star.
I love that you give them 1 star, but yet we're addicted to it. We're talking to each other about the characters.
I hate them. I hate these books.
This is a very strong word. I would not give it 1 star for the pure fact of that it enthralled me, and I wanted to know what happened to these characters, and I was really in the life of what they're okay, there's a lot of mental illness now there's addiction, and now there is love, and this is toxic relationship. I was in, so I would never give it a 1 because I was full in, but they were too long.
Oh my god, yes. At least 20 hours too long of that story. It's and
there's 4 books. And it was a lot of back and forth of just one relationship.
And it was predictable. I told you in book 2 exactly what was going to happen, and it was what happened at the end of book 4. And it was toxic relationships all over the place. I find that Hardin learned and actually grew from going to therapy and actually dealing with this issue. I found that Tessa did none of that shit. She's just the same. She just made everyone else around her change, which,
She did.
Ridiculous. Anyways, hated those books. Hated them so much. And would never recommend them to anyone.
But we spent so many hours on it that after we finished it, I was in a daze. What do I do now? What happens?
Oh, I was rushing my way through the end just so I could do something else.
But I had no energy left to pick up another book. We had Night Circus, and I was listening to it, and I'm I just can't. There's just so much. My brain is broke. After broke my brain.
But I actually, on a plus side here for After, is that once I finished After, I went back and continued listening to the Hades book, the
you also said you would never pick up the rest
or whatever
of them.
It's called. I can't remember. What is it called? The
Touch of Darkness?
But that's the Persephone one. The Hades one, it's A Game of Fate.
Game of Fate.
Yes, which is the same book as A Touch of Darkness, but from Hades' perspective, which when I started listening to it and when I read those books, I said I hate them and I would never continue listening to them. But now, after, which is a weird thing to say, I went back and I finished listening to Game of Fate and actually really enjoyed it.
I told you, though, because you were I'm done with these. And I was I read 2 more.
But I think I like them because... I found that A Game of Fate, Hades' perspective here, these are the books by Scarlett St. Clair, is much more interesting because he had much more of the gods, and it wasn't just this silly little girl trying to do adulting, which the Persephone books was.
Yeah.
Anyways, and then I also had time... after finishing the Night Circus, which I was reading and not listening to, I had time to finish our book club book where the Crawdads sing, and oh my god, I love that book.
I haven't even
started. It's by Delia Owens, and it has ridiculously high ratings on Goodreads, and it has 4.5 or something like that out of over 1 million reviews.
Whoa.
Yes. And it is worth every freaking star. I love that book. And the twist at the end blew my mind. Not really. I was what?
No!
I knew it!
No.
What? Shut! Yeah, I was that. And then I spoiled it for my husband, who's really? You're going to spoil this for me? I'm are you really going to read it? He's probably not. So I was allowed to spoil it for him, which I did. Happily, by rambling about it. I'm not as good at summarizing books as you are, Jerica. So it was a very sloppy summary of this book. But I did it. So what have you been reading this year? This year?
This year? No, we cannot get into that. But what have I been reading this week?
This week,
I read Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. That's the book that we've been reading this week. And I started on A King of Scars.
Yes.
By Leigh Bardugo.
Which is our next book, teaser.
And I'm super pumped about that. But I haven't finished reading it, but I started to read it. And that's all I got through this week because after literally consumed my brain until it broke, and then I picked up Night Circus and I just couldn't follow it. I have to say, as much as you loved Night Circus, and we're going to talk about this,
yes,
it didn't pull me in. Maybe in the end, But I was just getting through the book where you were like, I love this book. And I heard you recommend it to a bunch of people at the studio too.
I loved it.
But it was a good book, but I never like got pulled in. And I think the reason why is because I was listening to it. And it is an older British gentleman that talks about it. And, or talks about it. He's the narrator. And when he does the female voices, he doesn't do female voices. And if he does do female voices, because he's an older man, it sounds like an older woman.
Fair enough.
So when he does this female voice for Widget and Puppet, Puppet's voice is like this, like a granny old lady. And I'm like, what? But she's like young.
16.
She's 16, but she sounds basically like she is 95 because of the way the narrator's narrating. Anyways, long story short, I so regret listening to it. I wish I read it so I could have the same like connection to it as you
just
did.
go back and read it. But I think this is also one of these books where our tastes are going to differ a little bit, because I do love these kinds of book where the language is like, I mean, I kept highlighting this is all the stuff I highlighted in this book. Like, there's lots. And
again, Mia is showing you guys something that you cannot see.
I'm showing you this, but I'm going to read a few of these because they were just so, like, just the way with the words, which I really loved. And then it is the touching on the surface. It's not very explicit, and you have to read between the lines to actually get the romance and get all of these emotions. They're not put on the page, which, I mean, I find that this is where you like Sarah J. Maas and I like Holly Black. It's kind of like that difference a little bit. It's more in the way it approaches the love in a way.
I like very direct love. Is that what you mean? And you like background love.
But I mean, not background love, but more where it's not, I like you, you like me, let's jump into bed. Which Sarah J. Maas is very much like that.
Yeah. I'm fine with
that. Whereas I'm more of the Holly Black, where there's going to be some ways around this before we end up there.
And then maybe a kiss at the end.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Oh no. That's my nightmare, Hallmark movies. I'm like, I'm just not going to watch this because the last scene is just going to be the first time they kiss.
But I mean, it's not just a kiss. They can be more than the kiss, because there's more than the kiss in the Holly Black book. There's more than a kiss in this one as well.
Yeah.
It's not that. It's just that I think it's that there's more story, and the love is not necessarily the central part of it.
But
it is the red thread throughout of it, and it's the thing that ties the story together. But it's not the focus in a way.
It was just the Holly Black books. They were just so little. They were just so young for me. But
it's more the way it's written. I
find
like true. It's more that it's there, and it's everything they do is because of this love, but it's not the focus of the story in a way. Like this.
But the Six of Crows book,
yeah.
I agree with that. Like relationship, they had so much like mental health issues that their relationship with Kaz and Inez or Inish.
We're going to talk about these. We should talk about these so much before we start King of Scars here.
But they at the very end get to hold hands. So that's like their most intimate moment.
God, yes. Without the glove.
But still, that was like a really beautiful thing. So that's not like I don't need them to jump into bed. You know what I mean?
I'm saying.
But I like the relationship
to
be a.
But I'm not saying it's that necessarily. I think it's just the way of writing it. I think it's more that I'm after.
Okay.
Like kind of teasing at it rather than being more direct about it in a way. And this one was very much like that, because this is the Night Circus, which if we had tried to predict this after the first 3 chapters, realizing this is impossible.
Yeah.
Because no freaking clue what happened after these first 3 chapters. And I did predict love in my prediction. And I predicted that the competition was going to be like the focus of this, which I was right about. I had no idea where the circus fit into it, but it turns out that the circus is the actual arena for this competition. And then when I finished reading this book, I was trying to take notes so I would have stuff to say about this. And then I went back to look at my notes when I'm almost done, and I realized my notes are useless. So I had to send them to you because they're all... I'm going to read now from my notes. I love this book. I love Celia. Not too keen on Marco so far. Find him a bit slimy. I love Bailey and Poppet and Widget. Not too keen on Isabel and Chandres. These were my notes. So you want to know what happened in this book? Well, you will know that I love Celia, but I'm not too keen on Chandres. So...
Yes, good notes. Thank you for that summary, Leah. Super duper.
You're welcome.
I sort of wrote notes based on like tiny predictions that I had. Like when Widget and Popper were born on either side of midnight, I'm like, this is going to mean something. This is going to mean something for their powers. And then I was right later.
Yes, it did. So Widget can see the past and Poppet can see the future. Which was really cool. And they're tied to the circus, but they're not tied in the way the others are because they age. And everyone else who's tied to the circus don't age, which is a thing. And it also turns out in this book that if you're not too close to the center of the circus, like if you're not one of the contestants or actually traveling with the circus, then you're one of those other people that kind of in the periphery of this, then this affects you differently. And these people, one of them dies and they get depressed, they get confused, they get this stuff happening to them because it's not natural to not age and to not be able to let this project go when they're not continuously in it all the time.
So Marco and Celia are our MCs in this book.
Yeah.
The book is about a circus and about a competition and about magic.
Yes, and it's like we said in the other one, it starts with these two magicians. One of them has found his daughter, who's been literally dropped off in his lap pretty much, with a little note saying the mama has decided to end her life and here's your kid, take care of her. And he discovers that she has magic abilities, so he decides to train her, and then he decides to challenge this other magician, the man in the grey suit, Alexander, to this competition. And Alexander then promptly walks off to an orphanage, asks for some children, picks one of them and decides that this is his contestant, and that is Marco. Yeah. He doesn't even have a name. I guess he gets to choose his own name at some point, but he chooses Marco.
And Marco's magic gets developed over the years and through what seems to be like education for magic and not the way that Celia has it like in her.
But it's they talk about this kind of the two schools of magic. So Alexander, and the way he teaches Marco to do magic is the olden ways of doing magic. It's tying it up in runes and words and symbols and string and paper. And it's like at some point Marco has built the whole circus in paper in a room.
Yeah.
Which is really cool. And he's controlling it all with binding and with paper, with symbols, with these kinds of things. Whereas Celia, she draws on her powers from within. And she understands it in a different way, so she can fix her own skin if she breaks it and so on, because she understands how to knit her body back together, for example. And then the circus is their playing field, and Marco, when he does things in the circus, he ties it up with the binds and the paper, so it's not hard for him to control it, whereas Celia, she draws from her own strength and she carries it with her the whole time, which is draining to her.
Yeah.
And I mean, Celia is absolutely awesome. Yeah, I love her.
Yeah.
She's the best. And Marco is more of he's slimy in a way because he wears a fake face, but then he takes it off. Well, she makes him take it off. And then it's actually a love story. And then it turns out, you find out quite late in the book, that the challenge, because they try to keep winning this challenge, they try even working together in a way by doing a labyrinth where they do one room each and try to kind of outdo each other. And then they invite their magicians to try to get them to kind of declare a winner, but it turns out that that's not really how this challenge works. One of them has to die in order for the competition to be over. So it's sad because they're actually falling in love quite a lot, Marco and Celia. They are deeply in love.
So when they do fall in love, she tries to stop the circus, or at least try to find a way for them both to be able to live so that they don't have to do the competition at all. She tries to avoid the competition, but then of course that's not really working out, and she then talks to someone that's a part of the circus, which now she knows it was the winner of the last competition, and that's Tsukiko. And Tsukiko is the contortionist.
Yes.
But she also has other powers because...
And she was Alexander's champion, so that's why she has symbols. She has symbols tattooed on her body because she liked to not use paper like Marco. She used her own person to carry her magic.
And she then tells them about her competition, and she was also in love with her competitor, was a female, and she loved her so deeply, and her I guess supposed girlfriend walks into fire and kills herself.
Yes.
So that Tsukiko was able to win and survive and live. And she basically tells them it's the greatest burden on earth to
be the winner, to have someone else sacrifice their life so you can live, especially someone you love. And both of them, both Marco and Celia, are basically debating ending it all just to make the other one win.
Yeah.
Until they find a way around it, which is Bailey. And I loved Bailey.
I wrote here, Poppet and Bailey, heart eye emoji.
and just this quote from his grandma. It's the first time really we're introduced to Bailey, and when his grandma wants him to go to Harvard and his dad wants him to take over their farm. And his grandma says, follow your dream, Bailey. Be the Harvard or something else entirely. No matter what that father of yours says or how loudly he says it, he forgets that he was someone's dream once himself, which I just love that quote.
That's so beautiful.
And this book is full of these things, and it's just a descriptive language. Like Marco, when Celia and Marco meets face to face in Prague with the umbrella the first time, he's described as wearing a grin that has too much wolf in it to be properly sheepish, and it's just you can just see it. I love that.
I also love that they talked about, or Tsukiko at least told Marco and Celia that don't you see that the competitions that you've been doing and the magic that you've been making, these are all love letters. Every tent is a love letter to each other.
Yes. Like
showing and expressing your love through the magic of one another. And
yeah, for sure. And when we know they're in love, it's Marco kisses her in the ballroom, and she wears this magical dress that changes color based on whoever she's talking to, whatever they're wearing. And it's like two green-clad figures in the center of a vibrant ballroom, so undeniably in love that the entire room flushes with heat. It's very descriptive, like you can really feel it.
But that's better when you read it than when you hear an old British man say it to you. Because it just felt like he was reading like a textbook to me. Like there were very little emotion throughout the audiobook version of this book that I was like, okay, focus. This is what's happening. And I have to sort of like put pictures and images and voices in my own head because he couldn't.
Yes.
So I wish that I had read it, but I also quoted here a few like takeaways from the book that I liked a lot was when Celia and Marco are discussing like how they need to find another way than them to die or them to be in a competition, and she says, don't you know every decision we make affects everyone around us. Like one of us has to figure out a way out because everything we're doing is affecting everyone. Like somebody dies and then other things like conspire, and I thought that's actually a good thing to look at for everything in our life. Like every decision we make affects everyone around us, not if we're just working in a circus, but just all the time.
For sure. And I mean, it is around this where she's trying to make, because Marco is, in a way, he's independent from the circus already because he's tied it up with paper and symbols.
Yeah.
But with Celia, it is herself. She cannot leave it because it's so closely tied to her that it wouldn't work. And she's trying to, I have the quote here, I'm trying to make the circus independent, Celia said, to untie it from the challenge, from us, from me. I need to learn your system to make it work properly. I cannot let a place that is so important to so many people fade away. Something that is wonder and comfort and mystery all together that they have nowhere else. If you had that, wouldn't you want to keep it? And he answers Marco, I have that whenever I'm with you. Let me help you. And I was like, the love, you know, I'm a sucker for this book. It touched me in all of the right places. What can I say? And
all of the heart places.
All of the heart, right through the heart. And Bailey, and when Poppet asks him to come to the circus to live with them, and she kisses him, and he was like, he wasn't sure, and then she kisses him, and he's like, I'll go anywhere with you. I would follow her
He's
anywhere.
like thinking in his head at that point, and he's like, she doesn't know this, but I have decided I will go with her a long time ago.
I will go wherever she goes.
Yeah.
And then he goes, and the circus is gone, and I was
I
like,
know.
no!
But Tsukiko is there, and she is like,
But she wasn't there then, because he goes and the circus is gone, and then he has to go to the train station and he finds the people with the red scarves, the rêveurs, the dreamers, and they figure out where the circus is going, and it's going to New York, and they get on the train, and he stays with all of these other people that follow the circus around, like these devotees that love the circus. They go everywhere, and it takes him to New York, and then they were like, well, the circus is here, but it hasn't opened. It was closed for the weather. What is it?
Exactly, that's what I'm talking about. So
and then he runs there and he gets in, and then Zuki goes there. But when he first get there and it's gone, and he was ready to leave, and his sister made him late, and I'm like, no. I was like, no. But he was always meant to miss that, because if he would have been there when the fire would have gone out, then he would have been trapped like everyone else at that party. So he was never meant to go with them.
No.
And then he takes over the circus. Celia gives it to him.
Yes.
And he unbinds Poppet and Widget, but they stay with him anyways in the circus. And then they get all of the different bits of the circus, all the pieces of it, the rights and the ownership and all of that. They get all of it given to them to control. Together with Mr. Barris and Lainey. And they say they will live very long life. It's a story about circus, but also about love and magic.
Nice.
Yes, and I love this book. I love it. I recommend it. It is a recommendation. 5 stars.
5 stars. Well,
I give it 5 stars.
You really do go one way or the other.
Yeah.
It's either 5 stars or 1 star.
I don't think I've ever given 3 stars to anything.
You haven't?
I'm a 1 star or 5 star kind of person. It's either great or it's terrible.
Okay.
There's no in between. I'm a very black and white kind of person. I love it or I hate it. It's nothing else.
Well, this was The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. If you haven't read it and we spoiled everything for you, we are
you should
so
still
sorry,
read
but
it.
still read it anyways.
Just for the language.
But read it, don't listen to it.
Yeah, don't listen to it. Read it, for sure. And then we
move on to a book that we have been waiting for a really long time to read. The first of this book series has been out for at least 6 months. But
it's been out for a few years. So
really?
Not in this duology, but we're going to start at the beginning here, because this book that we're going to read now, or that we read about the first 3 chapters, King of Scars, is a book. It's a duology. It's the first part of a duology that takes place in the Grisha universe, which I don't know if you are familiar with the Grisha universe, but you should be. Better get in there. It's coming to Netflix too, so you got to get on board.
It's coming to Netflix next month.
This month.
It's April now.
It is April. It's April. 23rd of April.
Yes.
It comes out on Netflix. Shadow and Bone, which is the first part of the Grisha universe. It's a trilogy that is about this girl, Alina, who's a sun summoner, and her adventures with working with her power and getting rid of the fold.
Yeah.
In Ravka, which...
That was a really good summary. That was super summary right there.
in Ravka, which is a country that I would say is kind of like Russia in a way. Like, it feels kind of Russian with the names and
but it's world building, like it's a whole new world.
But if I were to put it close to, culturally close to something, I would say it's somewhat Russian. Ravka. And then in Ravka, there are these people that have magic powers. Grisha. And the Grisha, they are divided into 3 different factions. It's Korporalki, which is the people that can deal with your body, so they can fix your heart or they can change your appearance, right?
Like doctors, magic doctors?
Doctors or
any kind of doctor. So like...
I can't... What's the word?
Facialist?
No, it's the plastic surgeons. Plastic surgeons.
Yeah.
And then it's the fabricators that deal with materials.
Yeah.
And then it's etheralky. Etheralky. So it's the corporalky, etheralky, and the materialky. And the etheralky is the Scholars Inferni and Tidemaker. So it's fire, wind, and water.
Yes.
Yes.
So they have magic, but the rest of the world doesn't. But there is quite a big world here where it is sectioned off to a lot of different societies that believe a lot of different things.
Yes.
And one thing most of the other outside societies have in common is that they don't trust these Grisha, the ones with powers. Some of them want to study them and make them lab rats. Some of them want to murder them. And some of them think they're like demons and devils and things like that. A lot of stuff happens in Shadow and Bone.
It's a very good series. I like it. It's not as good as the duology that follows, which is Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, which is a heist book, which takes place in Ketterdam, which is a city very much like Amsterdam.
Still a part of this world.
On the island Kerch. Which is part of the whole world that Lee Bardugo has built here. And Six of Crows is a heist story. They need to break into
prison.
And Fjärda. They need to go to Fjärda, which is, I see it kind of like a mix between Norway and Sweden, culture-wise. And they need to break in there and rescue someone. I think there's more to this story. There's so much to this story. And in this story, I cannot super summarize this because I love it too much.
I know, I was going to say.
Six of Crows has six main characters, and they are basically a band of misfits, of thieves, and they have different skills. And together they need to pull this heist off, which is fantastically awesome to read about. It goes horribly wrong so many times, and it's well worth a read through. And now we come to the next duology in this series, which takes place after Six of Crows.
Exactly. So in order to follow this book, it would be best if you...
Or it might not be after Six of Crows.
It is though, because Nina is there and Matthias is,
Yes, this is true. Okay, sorry, because Nikolai shows up in Crooked Kingdom.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure if that was before or after this, but it's got to be before then.
It's before. Everything is before. So Nikolai, who's the main character in this new book that we're going to read called King of Scars by Lee Bardugo. All of these books we're talking about right now are by Lee Bardugo.
Yes.
And he shows up in Shadow and Bone, and he also shows up in Six Crows or Crooked Kingdom, maybe Crooked Kingdom only. But nevertheless, read those books so you know when you're reading this, King of Scars, who they all are, that they talk about. And in the very first 3 chapters, they bring up a lot of those characters.
They do. And if you have Swiss cheese memory like I do, you will be very confused in the beginning. And
I was like, how do you not remember?
Have to spend a lot of time trying to remember who the frick these people are, because it's been a few months since you read these books. But it comes back to you quickly, and I do love these books. And it made me want to reread them, but I really didn't have time to plow through 5 books before starting this one. I should have planned
for the basis
better.
of your relationship.
I really should have planned better, so I should have done this.
Should have planned better.
Should have read these.
All of these books are quite long, but then when I looked at this King of Scars in my ebook version, we're both reading it, we're not listening to it, because it's that good that it really shouldn't be passed up. Any word that you might miss in an audiobook would be great.
You should be paying attention to this stuff.
Yeah, pay attention. So read these books and read King of Scars also. Before we talk about the first 3 chapters and make our plot predictions, which have to be big because these books always have very grand plans and grand plots. We are going to judge the cover. And by judging the cover, we mean we're going to look at the cover and guess what we think the book is about. Of course, since we know the characters because we've read previous books, we know what it's basically going to be about, but we're going to take a look at this cover anyways.
There seems to be only one cover for this, which makes our lives easier. And the cover is basically a crest, so it's got the 2 birds. They're not eagles, they're some other birds. Maybe they're eagles? I don't know. I don't know birds.
They just look like feathers to me.
Well, they're birds, but are they eagles?
Oh, I see. Yeah, that's an eagle head.
Yeah, and then it's a shield with like scratches down it. And then we see a country and a ship at the bottom.
Maybe this is the bird that he's supposed to look like.
And then there's some kind of dragon up in the corner here and some flowers up in the corner here.
And then some Russian-y looking Moscow.
Yeah, but it's a
village.
city. It's a city and then it's a ship. So, what is this book about? It's all gold.
Yeah.
So... there's got to be about a king because there's a crown and a shield. Like, I feel like this is a crest, so it's got to be about a king. And it's also called King of Scars, so giving it away here.
I know, right?
Right. Apart from that, I really could not be able to tell you what the frick this book is about just based on this cover.
If I'm going to take a step back, I'm going to say that this is a part of a door. and there are claw scratches around it. So there's going to be some
Maybe
monster.
Beauty and the Beast kind of thing.
Yeah, Beauty and the Beast, a monster that tries to enter some sort of kingdom.
Yes. Okay, let's go with that. So we have read the first 3 chapters, and this book, like pretty much all of the, apart from the Shadow and Bone, which doesn't switch perspective very much, but the Six of Crows does. It switches perspective between lots of people. This one is going to do the same. We have lots of different people's point of view.
Yeah.
So in the first 3 chapters, we get 3 different people's point of view, and the first one is a brand new character that we've never met before, which is Dima, who's an 8-year-old boy living on a goose farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's this storm raging, and he has to go out and close the barn doors, even though he knows he's closed them already, only to find that the latch has been splintered and there's a freaking monster inside that tries to eat him. Not great. He gets saved by this girl showing up. He thinks she's a saint first. Turns out she's not a saint, she's a Grisha. And she snatches up this monster, shackles him, and drags him off. And this boy, he follows them at a distance, and when they pack this monster into a carriage, he hears them say, "Get in there, Your Highness."
Yes.
So this is then the Nikolai, the privateer and the king of Radka. And we love Nikolai.
I love him so much.
He's
the privateer, he is like the most hilarious character I think in any book that I've ever read, because he's so like suave and sarcastic, but like on point, and he doesn't miss anything. So like he could be in another room and somebody will say something and he'll like send like a hilarious little whip back to them, and you'll be like, "Oh, Nikolai, you're the best." And I like literally quoted in the first 3 chapters at least like 16 different quotes. but it was in this very first chapter, maybe before what or after what you were saying, because there were we find out that Grisha is this girl called Zoya, who has been
the general of his army, of the second army, or the first army?
No, the second army.
So the first army of Ravka is the actual real army, like the regular soldiers with weapons, and the second army of Ravka are then the Grisha.
Right.
So there's the magical army. Yes, just to establish that.
And I wrote, God, I missed Nikolai. Like, I really did. When you told me that he was going to come back when we were reading Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, I was like, now? When is it now? When is it now? Like,
and it's only like one scene in the...
It's only one scene when he's there. No, maybe a little bit longer, but nevertheless, he's not in so much of it, and I really like him as a character. He is, like... narcissistic in like a funny way, not in a like asshole way.
Yes.
He's a king and he's really handsome, but because of the Grisha, the magical people that he has around, they change his appearance whenever he goes anywhere so that nobody recognizes him, and he is still his like witty self, even though he knows he looks like a horrible man, horribly ugly man, I should say. But he's really handsome. His blonde hair is all my favorite stuff. That wave, his golden locks that wave in the air. I'm so in love with him.
Anyways, moving away.
It's finally no more dark, inky black hair.
But he is now a monster because the Darkling put his dark power into him, turning him into this beast, this winged monster.
But only at night.
Only sometimes, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what happens in the first chapter. And in the second chapter, we get to see it from Zoya's point of view. And she's just, found the king, brought him back. He shouldn't have freaking escaped in the first place. And they're in this town. And they're there for a summit, but they're also there because there's been a miracle in this town. Where... some people were going in a parade across the bridge, and the bridge disappears, only to have a brand new freaking bridge show up underneath their carriages, and this new bridge is a freaking spine. Mm-hmm. It's made of bone and held together by like tendons and stuff. Like it's disgusting, and it's kind of like
when Zoya's
not cool.
When they're in their carriage going across this bridge, Zoya says something like, I don't love this noise.
No.
Like, I don't love
going
the noise
over the vertebrae of the spine. Yeah, no.
I don't care for this noise, she says. I was like, yeah, I could hear that in my head also. I would not want to be driving over a spine either.
And Zoya here, she wants Nikolai to marry. So
She's his general, but they're like really flirty, and I can see that there's something.
Because it's a ruse to get people to guess about him, because it's better that they think he's sleeping with his general than to think he's a monster flying around eating babies.
Oh, sure.
And she wants him to find a match to secure his trades with Kirsch and other parts of their world, and also to kind of have an heir. Yeah. This would be good. And Nikolai's not too keen.
No. But he's like, okay, yeah, sure.
And then they leave anyways.
Yeah.
And then in chapter 3, we get to follow Nina. And Nina is one of the main characters from Six of Crows. Yes. She's one of the Six Crows. And
my favorite from Six of Crows was Matthias, who was her love. And they were a solid relationship. Yes. And he was what I can only imagine, like sort of Viking-y.
Yes.
Like really big, brutish. Super serious.
I see him like
blonde,
like Frozen. Kristoff.
No, but he's not that like floppy. He's more serious.
I still see him like Kristoff.
You do? That's maybe why we have different opinions on him, because I see him like Ragnar Lothbrok.
I see him as
like from the Viking series.
Yeah, I haven't seen Vikings, so
oh, you haven't?
No, I haven't. Anyways, and we're now in Fjärda, which is the northern parts here, which is mostly snow and ice, which feels like home, really. And she's working undercover in this fish cannery, which is not great. While she's working in this network of helping Grisha escape from Fjärda, because in Fjärda, if you Grisha, you get killed. They hunt Grisha down.
Yeah.
And
which is why their love story was
in Crooked Kingdom. In Six of Crows and Crooked Kingdom, they introduced this powder that's called Parada Jurdam or Jurdaparam, which is like enhances the Grisha's power, but it also makes them addicted to it, and then they will die.
It's a drug, yeah.
And Nina takes it at one point to help them escape, and she then has to suffer the after effects of this, which was really tough on her. And he changed her Korporalki powers. She used to be a heartrender, and now she has death power instead. So she can kind of sense death in people, and she can control skeleton and ashes if you've been burned. And she's very morbid in a way, her power nowadays, and
especially because she is carrying her dead boyfriend around with her.
Yes, because she had promised him that she was going to bury him in Fjärda, so she's bringing him with her. And it seems that her power is also developing, because she now seems to hear dead people. So she hears Matthias talk to her in her head,
and they talk,
and she also hears whispers. She has other dead people.
And but this Matthias, he's like in her head. I love that he's even a little bit in this book. I love him so much.
I predict he's going to come back. This is part of my prediction.
No!
So what will happen here? It's kind of hard to say after these 3 chapters, because we haven't been given much of the story. But so far what we know is that Nikolai cannot control the darkness in him, and he cannot control his transformation, and it's happening more frequently than others, which I would indicates that the Darkling's power is rising. But the Darkling's dead, right? He died.
Yeah, he died.
Yeah. I couldn't remember fully if he was dead or not. You see, bad memory. Right. But something is happening in Fjärda and in Ravka. There's more miracles happening. And in this town in Fjärda, they say a river's gone sour, and there's whispers. She hears it. So I would say there's being a surge in magic. This is what's happening, because these, like the bridge thing with its spine, like this is a massive miracle. That's not something just one Grisha can do. So, and if it's not the drugs making them that powerful, then there's something that's surging, like something is coming. This is what I'm saying, and I think a war is looming.
With who?
That I'm not sure.
Okay.
But Nikolai is a war king, and he will fight a war, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And then we know that Hiram, which is this merchant from Kirsch, who has eligible daughters that Soya wants to marry Nikolai off to. I think he's going to be important thanks to Holly Black for ruining this on freaking Instagram. I'm going to guess that he's going to be important because she dressed up as Hiram Schenk. So you wouldn't do that to a character that was introduced once in the first chapter. Just saying, or second.
True.
And I think Matthias may be coming back to life. And the main reason I say that is because he's not buried yet. He's being preserved by Grisha this whole time. And I want to predict this.
You know, if he comes back, which I did not have that in my mind, because I couldn't figure it out, because she keeps saying he's dead. I know he's dead. He's dead.
I think the surge in magic would probably bring him back. I think it might be her.
If he does,
because she has death magic, so I think she might be able to bring him back.
I will write so many love letters to Lee Bardugo, because when he died in Crooked Kingdom, I cried. I literally shed tears, and I was angry because they had just saved this other boy with like lightning and shit like that. Oh, but you can't save him from just a knife wound?
No.
One stab? I was devastated, like truly broken. So if he comes back, I will be so happy.
And I'm guessing that Dima will have a pretty important role to play, because he seems to have many chapters. It's only based on that, because when you look at the names of the chapters, his name comes up quite frequently.
Oh, does it? I was thinking that maybe...
Or maybe he doesn't.
Remember
maybe
in
I'm
Six
just
of
wrong.
Crows?
Yeah.
When there
No, I'm
was
wrong.
that...
I can't read. He only shows up in the beginning.
Okay. Okay, because in Six of Crows... you were like, read the beginning of it, but don't worry, that guy has nothing to do with it, and he's a super boring beginning character. When we opened this book and it was Dima, I was like, okay, she's doing the same thing, the author.
Yeah, she is. It's just me, I can't read.
But he's going to be brought back, like, it will matter. He will matter for the story, just like last time when that guy...
But he didn't matter for the story. It was more the introduction of the drug.
The drug. But that's what I mean. There's going to be something that this beginning story has to tell for the rest.
Yeah, for sure. Okay.
Of the book.
So that was my prediction. So what do you predict?
I predict actual love. I have this feeling of Zoya and Nikolai being together. I don't support it, because Zoya is a bitch.
Oh, she is I mean, like, there's one point in this book, I think it's actually past where we stopped reading, because I kept reading a little bit last night, and it's like, her icy exterior hides an even icier inside. That's the quote.
I love that.
Because someone's like, hey, you just need to break through a hard shell, her icy exterior. And he's like, well, her icy exterior just hides an even icier inside. So you might want to drop that idea, kind of thing.
Yeah, but from the very beginning, she was a bitch to Alina from the first Shadow and Bone book. Then in the second book, she was a bitch to the Six, even though she did help them quite a lot. And now she's the general of the army, and she's a bitch to the king. But I could sense that he's going to maybe melt this icy exterior. And if anybody is going to be... if it's going to be anybody, it's going to be him, because he is so suave. But then again, he was in love with Alina in the first book.
But everyone was in love with Alina. It was a bit ridiculous, honestly. Lee, you could have done better with that. Because everyone was in love with Alina. And it was like, I think... But then again, maybe they weren't in love with Alina, they were just in love with her power.
Yeah, because she was so powerful.
But she was also so powerful, but she was really easy to capture, so I'm not sure about that.
Capture and fool and trick.
Fool, yeah. It was like, oh, look, she's super powerful. But if we do this, we can capture her and just keep her underground where she has no power. This will be great.
It was like all of the war planning for the Darkling just to pop up and be like, but wait, I had all of these plans. We were going to leave in 1 month's time. And he's like, well, I'm here now. Now we have to fight.
Yeah, I'm not ready for this. And I just killed all your friends.
Yeah.
Oh. Yeah.
No, she was kind of dumb character. I mean, she was dumb, but she was really powerful. So she was still a good character, but she was not the most intelligent, I would say. But she's not in this book. I don't think so.
I don't think so either, because she has a very, like, the end of her book. I think if we're going to see Alina, it's going to be because Nikolai is going to go visit her now.
Yeah.
Because she runs the orphanage. That's what she's doing. And that's what they said in the end of the Shadow and Bone, that this is what she's going to be doing. She's just going to be with Mal and run the orphanage.
But I predict love. I think that Zoya and Nikolai are going to be together, even though I don't support it. But if another girl comes into play, I would love to see a romance play out with Nikolai, because he's just so charming. Now that you said it, I really want Matthias to come back to life, but I'm not sure. Like, we mourned him.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure he's going to come back. I had a feeling, like you said, with the bridge and things like that there are beasts and other magical creatures that are multiplying and taking charge. So I had a feeling that this is going to go more towards like the creature side versus the people side, because we had a lot of battles with people in the past two books. And we know that there's so many of these creatures from the past two books that are like in hiding.
Yeah.
So I felt like this is going to be a creature battle.
Maybe. Well, we're just gonna have to keep reading.
Ooh.
So we don't have time for you guys anymore.
No, bye. We gotta
books
go.
to read.
Books to read. Have an awesome week, everyone. Follow along with us in The King of Scars by Leigh Bardugo, and we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.
We'd Rather Be Reading is an original podcast by Jerika Seron and Leah Sanfo. The music for The Penguins, written and performed by David Allred from the album The Transition, courtesy of Erased Tapes. Please check him out on Spotify and check us out on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram at We'd Rather Be Reading and on Twitter at We'd Rather Read. You can also email us at we'dratherbereadingthepod@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.